Okay.
Okay, right?
Go ahead.
There?
Go ahead. Good. Man, you got it right down on the first shot.
Bam.
Good.
Now, before we get into the job that I want to show for this video, let's back up a little bit to some of the interesting things I encountered this week. Here is some Armillaria malea. It is also known as oak root fungus. Interestingly, as it popped up, it pushed that rock up off the ground. So as I was looking around, there was quite a bit of these mushrooms growing here, and I looked at this birch tree, and it became very clear to me that this tree needs to go. So we were at the job site to do a bunch of other work, and I pointed it out to the client, and she agreed. So we did indeed take this down. It was a fairly simple job, so I'm not going to bore you with cutting down the tree, but what I would like to show you is what we encountered when I got it down to the ground. The decay that was in that half of the tree that was cut off had gone all the way down to the base. And, you know, the tree might have survived a few more years. It very likely would have survived a few more years. But with this amount of decay, it really doesn't have a future. It's going to reach a point where it will fall down. And she was smart enough to figure it out as well. I pointed it out to her. But the Armillaria there, I was concerned that it might also be affecting that Japanese maple. And on the other side of the yard, there was yet another birch tree that we cut down a couple of years ago, and it also was decayed in the middle, and it actually died. She planted another tree there. Oh, this is interesting. This was at the job that I went to help the guys out. At one time, there was a big pine tree here that was removed probably by the power company, but they cut it off. The branches were embedded in some of the wires. And the woman asked me if I could get this one branch off of here. And I said, well, we'll see what I can do. And I went up there with the ladder, and it was indeed at a point where it was so rotten that I figured I could probably break it off of there. And I tried, and I couldn't do it. So I went down, and I got a great big hammer and gave it a few good breaks. My first thought was I was going to try and cut it off, but I could only get so close if I cut it off. But the hammer, it seemed to be just the force that it needed. It's interesting, sometimes the branches will get absorbed by wires, and I see these little artifacts in the wires quite often where the power company cuts the tree down and just leaves little reminders. So I went on to an estimate, and we are having a big problem with Monterey pines in our area. Pinus radiata. These trees are being attacked by a whole bunch of insects, bunch of borers. There's the western turpentine beetle, there's the Ips pine beetle, there's the sequoia pitch moth, and they're all transmitting a disease called pitch canker. And it's a tree that is going to become extinct in our area. You know, not many people plant them anymore because they are so susceptible. So I'm thinking about how much to bid on this. Go ahead, tell me, how much would you price these trees out? Can't tear up the driveway, can't tear up the curb and the gutter, you know, so everything's got to be brought down kind of careful. There's roots everywhere, so if you drop big chunks, they might bounce towards the house. You know, there's enough room there to work, but can't just fell trees onto the street either. This is yet another bid that I went to, and this is something I really wanted to talk about. How amazing is that branch? The guy that lives there, his parents passed away, and now he inherited the house. And he said when he grew up as a boy, this branch was right outside his bedroom window, so he kind of grew up watching it, and now this thing has evolved into something pretty magnificent. Could you imagine a mechanical engineer designing anything that could support that much weight growing straight out without a bottom support or without a top, brace or something? Everything, all the fibers of the wood are holding about 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of weight straight out. He did have to cut off some of the stuff that was hanging over his parking area, the driveway, and he explained that the tree went up and down about 18 inches over the course of the year. And over on the other side of the same yard, there's a deodar cedar that has another unusually bizarre branch. This one had a lot of interesting compression going on at the bottom of it, and it actually kind of curled up and around and was weeping a lot of pitch. But, whenever I see something like this, I am truly amazed at how strong a tree can develop to support all that weight. Not only is it supporting that weight has to move. It has to flex and bend, and all the fibers of the wood. And a lot of times you'll see a piece of trunk wood like this that flexes a little bit, and it cracks and it mends, and it cracks and it mends, and it develops all kinds of different wood.
That's gonna be enough.
So let's get back to the job.
It's good. You don't want to hit that car over there.
I really don't. His car.
All right.
Straight up.
Okay.
Okay, right?
Go ahead.
There.
Go ahead. Good. Man, you got it right down on the first shot.
Bam.
Good. I gave this guy a bid over here to trim his trees. Guess he found somebody else. And we got to this one over here as well. And last year somebody did it to this sycamore tree. But it's kind of a shame because, these are city trees, and the city has laws and rules against doing this, but people do it anyway. And today we've got, that's one of the biggest pecan trees I think I've ever seen. I got Kalen up there with the rope. I'm going to do some of the lower branches with the small bucket. And then we've got that big oak tree over there. Later on in the summer, we're going to have that big dead pine. It's not completely dead yet, so he says let's wait till it's totally dead. And then we've got that monster to work on. That's a California bay tree. Beautiful, beautiful giant tree, but it's slippery. Oh man, and it rained last night. So we shall see.
Then you have like a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage anytime you want. See, if you need to go back up, it's really easy, and then it locks you off. You just push that up.
So it's almost like body hoisting.
Yeah, but it's a 3-to-1 versus a 2-to-1 with no friction.
And if you let go, does that catch you?
You have to do that.
Huh?
With this one, you have to go like that.
Oh, so if it's in the down position,
it's in this, it'll just kind of. Yeah.
So if you just dropped from that, the way it is now, would you fall?
No, because all you gotta do is let go, and it will catch.
Okay.
But if you have tension on it like this, then you just go like this, and it opens up.
Got it.
But so if you
new belt, look at that.
If you end up going down like out on a limb, if you're only on a single line, it's kind of hard to just hand over hand pull yourself back up. So if you just clip this in, then you can just hoist yourself back up really easily, and then lock that off. Take this off, and then just clip it back to your belt.
Got it.
So it's really nice to have that 3-to-1 advantage.
So which belt did you end up getting?
This is the Petzl Sequoia.
And why did you choose that over the, say, the Monkey Beaver or?
I really like that it has ability to put 2 bridges right here. So if you have 2 ropes on, you can have them attached separately to 2 different angles. So they're not both pulling on the one central point.
Yeah.
You might be able to do that with some of the others too, but Petzl just makes great shit. I mean, these things, everything's just really well made. What I like too is that this has kind of like a rock climbing belay loop. It keeps this thing really nice and tight. So when you clip in your rope runner, it keeps it low. You can then have your chest harness right here. If it's too high up here, it doesn't self-tend as well. So it's kind of nice to have it all right down here while you're walking up the rope.
So why is it better to be tied in close here than out here?
If you have it out here, then you've got this up here, and then you've got your chest harness that's up here, and everything rides a little bit higher than you want it to, and it kind of sets you back a little bit. So that the lower it is down here, the more upright you can stand, and the less effort you have to use on your arms.
But then when you get tied in, you switch to the bridge.
Yeah, then once I get lanyarded into a good branch up there, then I switch to the bridge, and then I have it on a swivel now, so I won't get all tangled up like I used to. All in all,
you got some good gear now.
Yeah, should just make my life less frustrating up there.
All right, well, let's get to work.
Well, like I said, we had this enormous pecan tree to work on. Kaylin and I worked on it as a team. I had the small bucket out here, so I was catching all the low stuff and the stuff over the street. My son Trent is home from college. He's 18 years old, and he's home for Christmas vacation. So he said he wouldn't mind coming out and working with us. So I gave him the job of flagman and haul and brush. He was a good worker. He did well. Breaking in a new family member, maybe. We shall see. He's a good kid. So anyway, like I said, I got up in the small bucket truck, and one of the things that I started to notice were there are a lot of defects in this old tree. The house was built in 1922, so it's very likely that the tree was planted when they developed the street, and so that makes this tree at least 100 years old. It was a few years old when they put it in the pot. And there's also in the backyard a very large live oak, a coast live oak, and this tree had never been pruned. It was all over the place. It was over the house, over the neighbor's yard. It was a beautiful tree. They loved the shade, but when we got there, we realized that there was a huge break in the top of the tree. So back out to the pecan. Jorge and the other guys started on the tree in the back. So we actually had like two operations going on at the same time. They worked on that tree and we worked on this tree in the front here. And periodically one of them would come out and help with roping or whatever. This is Daniel lowering some pieces of wood. Amazingly heavy. I couldn't believe how heavy this pecan was. And I should have showed you the growth rings, but you could see there's easily at least 100 rings on just this piece of wood.
Watch the wire this time.
So we didn't want it to damage the street. Sometimes if you drop a big chunk of wood onto the street, it'll leave a big smiley face, or it would have broken the curb or something. And there was a lot of traffic here too. For some reason, it was a residential street, but it was a bus route. So about every 15 minutes a bus came through. Then it was garbage day, and because it's Christmas holidays, everybody was out walking their dog, and the kids and the bicycles and the skateboards. And there was even this guy in a modified go-kart that came flying down around the street. So we were very nervous about people and vehicles and all this stuff going on, because half of the street was over the road. So Trent's job as a flagman was very important, and I had to put Daniel on the other side. So we were frequently stopping traffic just to make a few cuts and letting them go. And that was almost all day long, just working on this side of the tree. When we got to the other side, it actually sped up and went a lot faster. So Kalen is using his new gear. He's made a sizable investment here, and he's actually showing me up with all of his new stuff. He's new technology, and I'm old school. One of these days I'll do an old school video of my belt and my techniques and how I've always done it. And I'm not opposed to going with some of the new gear. I'm just, I'm one of those old dogs. It's kind of hard to train the new stuff. And as I watch him, though, I'm intrigued. I think that, especially as I get a little bit older, if I can find easier ways to get up in a tree and work on it. So lunchtime came around, and Daniel said, can I give it a try? So we had him go get his belt, and this is the first time he's ever used this equipment to get up in a tree. He did quite well for the first time. I see Daniel's a natural. I really think that he's going to go far if he sticks with this as a career. Then Trent came along and said, can I try? I was okay. So his big brother, Kalen, there, and put on all of his gear. This is the first time Trent has ever attempted to get up in a tree. We've done a lot of rock climbing as a family, so Trent is comfortable with heights and working with ropes, but all of this is brand new to him. And I was impressed that he said, yeah, I'll give it a try. I want to see what I can do. The foot ascender that Kalen has, I don't know exactly what brand it is. He's got a knee ascender on one side and a foot ascender. And the foot ascender is kind of like a quick on-off type of a sender, and unless you really know what you're doing, it comes off
Bigger
easily.
step with the left. There you go.
Even
Oh,
Kalen has problems with this.
without
I'm not sure
pulling
that's
out.
the kind of
Oh my God.
foot ascender I
Okay.
want. I have another foot ascender that locks on a little bit better, but and there's pros and cons to it. I guess if you get really good at that type of a foot ascender, then you can slap it on, slap it off faster. But Trent did okay. He got up there a ways.
Pull down.
Oh, this is at lunchtime, so we're not wasting the client's time.
You got it. All the way.
It was fun. Everybody was very interested in seeing all the new stuff. And Kalen bought a brand new belt. This is actually only had it for a week here, so we had to learn some new tricks. This is kind of interesting.
All right, it's gone.
I had to do some roping here, but I decided to do a speed line, and I had to drop it because I couldn't bring it all the way. There was only one spot that I could bring it down. I didn't want to hit those pillars, those lights. There were sprinklers everywhere and a lot of plants. So it was kind of more of a redirect. So all these big branches were hanging up really badly. So I gave it just enough to pull the butt end towards where I wanted to, and then I let it fall.
Yeah.
Cut the rest of the stuff off. I'm always glad to hear the call of heads up or headache or something like that. We had one more big one that I had to do over here. Actually, we did this 3 or 4 times throughout the tree, and it helped out immensely in getting these big chunks out of the tree. So sometimes even if you can drop it free, a speed line is still the smart move because it allows you to, at the very least, you've got some control and you can tug on the branch to get it to continue falling. But if you're careful with it on the ground, you can pull it out, and as the branch falls, it'll go the way you want to. He had both ropes up there. One was a DRT and one was SRT, and at one point he said, "I'm going to use them both to get down." I thought that was interesting. And there we go. That's what the tree looks like after a long, hard day. We took a lot of stuff out of that tree.